Donald Trump is getting hit with bad news at a remarkable pace and is clearly very upset about it, having a complete and total meltdown. Donald Trump did what he does best in the last 24 hours, sending out raging messages to Truth Social as he processes the reality of all his legal troubles stacking up. Before showing you these rants, let me quickly break down just some of what's going on in the world of Trump's legal troubles. So we've been covering the numerous people pleading guilty in Trump's cases, and then his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, flipping on him in exchange for immunity. In recent days, we saw Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesebro, Jenna Ellis, three of Trump's former lawyers, all pleading guilty in the Georgia election interference case. And I've talked about how this is a really bad sign for Donald Trump. These people who were right alongside him and our lawyers have legal knowledge saying, oh no, this evidence is damning, I don't want to take this to trial. Plus, we're likely going to see at least some of these lawyers testify against Donald Trump at trial. Well, it looks like more is to come on that front. And so more of the co-conspirators, a part of this Georgia election interference case, are in talks with prosecutors to strike a deal. Here's this being reported on from Forbes. Prosecutors in Fulton County, Georgia have discussed plea deals with at least 6 co-defendants in former President Donald Trump's case, in addition to the 4 who have already agreed to plead guilty. CNN reported, citing multiple anonymous sources, showing that more allies could flip on Trump, who was indicted along with his 18 co-defendants for their alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. So more of what we saw last week is likely to come. And then you also have this news that's making Trump very unhappy. Reuters reports Donald Trump was fined $10,000 on Wednesday after the New York judge overseeing his civil fraud trial said the former U.S. president for a second time violated a gag order barring him from disparaging court staff. Judge Arthur Engoron had imposed the order on October 3rd after Trump shared on social media a photo of the judge's top clerk posing with U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, and falsely called her Schumer's girlfriend. And here was the moment that got Trump fined this time around.
This was a trial should have never been brought, but if we had a jury, it would have been fair, at least, even if it was a somewhat negative jury, because no negative jury would vote against me. But this judge will, because this judge is a very partisan judge, with a person who's very partisan sitting alongside of him, perhaps even much more partisan than he is. So we are doing very well. The facts are speaking very loud. He's a totally discredited witness, and you haven't seen anything yet. This goes on for a long time, but he's a totally discredited witness.
In the judge's limited gag order, he had explicitly prohibited attacks against that clerk, that particular clerk, by Donald Trump. We've seen what Trump's attacks can lead to, so it's important for the judge to protect his staff. And so the fact that the judge demanded Trump take the post down, it remained on his website. So then he was fined. And then once again, Trump went after this person, absolutely necessitates this sort of action, if not worse. And then here was a Trump saying after this, oh no, I wasn't referencing the clerk. Take a look at this.
Disparaging comments.
No, not at all.
Who are you speaking about?
Very convincing stuff there from Trump. So all of this is building. His former chief of staff flipping on him, his former lawyers pleading guilty, getting fined for violating a gag order, Michael Cohen, another one of his former lawyers testifying against him in his New York fraud case. So here's what he had to say on Truth Social. The New York State Attorney General's case against me is dead, but the radical left judge refuses to end it. He just can't let it go. Their star witness lied like a dog on the stand today and then admitted that I did nothing wrong. That's exactly what he admitted to, I'm sure. A total sleazebag. Letitia James should focus on violent crime, which is out of control. She can walk and chew gum at the same time. So unfair. I don't even get a jury trial because your lawyers didn't opt for that. A blight on the New York State judicial system. Businesses are watching all over the world and never coming in, only moving out. The governor should get involved. Election interference by my political opponent. It's all election interference. State cases, federal cases. It doesn't matter which jurisdiction. It's all Joe Biden coordinating all of it. It is wild how much he projects to. He's being prosecuted in one of the other cases for election interference, 2 of them. And that's what he's constantly accusing Biden of doing. Very fascinating. And then the next message, he says, does anyone notice that the election rigging Biden administration never goes after the riggers, but only after those that want to catch and expose the rigging dogs? He really has a thing with dogs. What's your deal with dogs, Donald? Massive information and 100% evidence will be made available during the corrupt trials started by our political opponent. We will never let 2020 happen again. Look at the result. Our country is being destroyed. MAGA. I want to note once again, Trump is being prosecuted because he's an adult and made decisions, and some of those decisions, at least prosecutors believe, were against the law. So now he has to be held accountable for that. That's law and order. That's what they said they believed in until it applied to Donald Trump. And then another, the radical left judge who should not be handling the fake and fully discredited case brought against me by the New York State AG. It should be handled by the commercial division, but should never have been brought. Fined me $10,000 yesterday under his so-called gag order. He's a judge that found me guilty before the trial even started, and long before he had the real facts, like Michael Cohen collapsing and choking yesterday under cross-examination and completely admitting that I did nothing wrong. He committed massive perjury at a level seldom seen on the stand before. These are the rantings of an unstable person. It was like watching the end of the best Petty Mason episode where the defendant breaks down and cries, yes, I did it. I did it. I did it. This case should be ended now, but this judge and his boss, Letitia Peekaboo James, will never let that happen. He even refuses to accept our big win. The appeals court is a disgrace to the legal system of the state of New York. This is a rigged case. Whew. Quick pause from reading his rants. We'll probably wrap it up there. I can't take any more, but let's watch this from Michael Cohen getting asked about how Trump looked in the courtroom.
When you looked him in the eye, Michael, what did you see?
I saw a defeated man. I saw somebody that knows that it's the end of the Trump organization, already found guilty of fraud. The license will ultimately be taken, and now this entire case is merely about how much. This is merely about how much disgorgement the Attorney General will be seeking.
Mr. Cohen,
And if he already looks defeated in the courtroom in this case, how on earth is he going to look after his 4 criminal trials? Potentially, I know what's coming, potentially like he looks on the golf course. Yikes. So then in the final post I was going to show you, but here it is up on screen. He calls the New York Times journalist Maggot Hagerman. You can just notice this trend of him increasingly dehumanizing all of his political enemies. But like I said, I can't take any more of this. So things, as you can tell by his vibe, are not looking good for him. All of these meltdowns, him lashing out against prosecutors, witnesses, judges, clerks of judges. His opponent, Christie, thinks is a sign of Trump's awareness that the walls are caving in on him. I tend to agree. Here's what Christie had to say, and specifically in response to the news that Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, had flipped on Trump in the federal election interference case. Take a look.
Mark Meadows knows everything. Everything that Donald Trump said and did and ordered other people to do on his behalf, and just as importantly, everything he was told about the lack of facts to back up his contention that the election was stolen, yet he continued to act as he did then and as he does now. So the tweet that, or this post that he put up regarding Mark Meadows was clearly an attempt to influence and intimidate Mark Meadows, who we now have every reason to believe is a witness for the government against Donald Trump. His conduct is showing you, Neil, the walls are closing in on him. And the Republican Party needs to look at this and say, no matter what you think of what kind of president Donald Trump was, this is not going to be a pretty campaign if he is the nominee of our party. We need to pull away from the precipice here and pick someone who will actually make Joe Biden the focus of the next election, not Donald Trump.
And I do think that's the case. As the walls cave in, Trump grows more desperate and begins acting more erratically and dangerously. I encourage you to go check out a video I did recently, if you haven't already, titled "What the Hell is Happening?" where I break all of this down. The first part is just Trump's buffoonish behavior, him having brain glitches. But the second part of the video walks through this escalating, violent rhetoric, the life-threatening statements, dehumanizing rhetoric, and so many different concerning aspects of his rhetoric and how it's shifting. And it's definitely a frightening trend. And then we'll close with New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought the fraud case against Donald Trump with this message outside of the court yesterday.
This has been a 4-year investigation, and there is mountains of evidence
which basically corroborate the testimony of a number of witnesses. It's also important to know that Michael Cohen is not the main witness. His evidence has been corroborated by the mountains of evidence, enough evidence to fill the courtroom. And so I look forward again to this trial continuing, and I always look forward to justice. Thank you very much. And let me also remind you that the judge has already made a decision with respect to the summary judgment. There is sufficient evidence to prove that, in fact, Mr. Trump, the Trump Organization, and the other defendants committed widespread fraud.
And she's absolutely correct. The evidence was so overwhelming on the claim being brought against Trump and the Trump Organization that the judge was able to side with Letitia James on the summary judgment even before the trial started, meaning Trump was already found liable for fraud. Now damages are being decided on. Before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasleyShow.com/membership. Think about it. Every day you're missing just a whole show that I'm doing. Can you imagine? Plus, follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, Twitter or X at Luke P. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter. You wake up in the morning, boom, the Beasley Brief in your inbox. Here's what happened yesterday. You can go to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief to get access to that. It's free, and I'll see you next time.